The morning sun cast a warm glow over the bustling streets of East London as Prince William and Catherine, the Princess of Wales, stepped out of their black Range Rover. They had traded their usual formal attire for something more practical. William wore dark jeans and a casual button-down shirt, while Kate opted for comfortable trousers and a cream-colored sweater. Their destination was Rinkoff Bakery, a family-run establishment that had been serving the local community for over a century. The royal couple had specifically requested this visit as part of their ongoing efforts to connect with small businesses across London. They wanted to understand the challenges facing local entrepreneurs and learn traditional trades that were slowly disappearing from British culture. The idea of making bagels by hand particularly appealed to them, as it represented the rich multicultural heritage of East London. As they approached the bakery's modest storefront, a small crowd had already gathered on the sidewalk. Local residents peered through shop windows and pressed against barriers that had been hastily erected by security personnel. The atmosphere was electric with excitement, but also tinged with the everyday reality of a working neighborhood where people were simply trying to go about their morning routines. Ray Rinkoff, the third-generation owner of the bakery, stood nervously by the front door. His family had built this business from nothing, starting with his grandfather who arrived from Eastern Europe with little more than a dream and a secret recipe for the perfect bagel. Now, decades later, his small shop was about to host members of the British royal family. He wiped his flour-dusted hands on his apron and checked his watch for the 10th time in 5 minutes. Inside the bakery, the morning rush was in full swing. Regular customers who had been coming here for years were surprised to find additional security personnel discreetly positioned around the shop. The familiar aroma of freshly baked bread and pastries filled the air, mixing with the nervous energy of the staff who had been preparing for this visit for weeks. William and Kate paused at the entrance to greet the gathering crowd. They shook hands with local residents, exchanged pleasantries with shopkeepers from neighboring businesses, and took time to speak with a group of school children who had been allowed to leave their morning lessons to witness this unusual royal visit. The genuine warmth in their interactions was evident as Kate bent down to chat with a young girl clutching a small British flag, while William engaged in animated conversation with an elderly gentleman who claimed to have been buying bagels from this very shop since the 1960s. The royal protection officers maintained a respectful distance, allowing the couple to interact naturally while keeping a watchful eye on the proceedings. Local police had cordoned off the immediate area, but the atmosphere remained relaxed and friendly rather than formal or intimidating. As they finally entered the bakery, the contrast between the modest interior and their usual palatial surroundings was striking. The shop was compact and functional, with worn wooden floors that had been polished smooth by decades of foot traffic. Display cases showcased an array of freshly baked goods, traditional bagels alongside modern interpretations, challah bread, rugula, and various pastries that reflected the diverse tastes of the local community. Ray Rinkoff stepped forward to greet his royal visitors, his initial nervousness giving way to pride as he began to share the history of his family business. He explained how his grandfather had arrived in London's East End at the turn of the century, part of a wave of immigrants seeking better opportunities and fleeing persecution in their homeland. The original bakery had been much smaller, operating out of a basement kitchen with just a single oven. Kate showed genuine interest as Ray described the traditional methods his family still used to create their bagels. Unlike commercial operations that relied on machines and shortcuts, Rinkoff Bakery continued to hand-roll every bagel, allowing the dough to develop its characteristic texture and flavor through time-honored techniques passed down through 3 generations. William examined the various ingredients laid out on the work surfaces: high-quality flour, fresh yeast, salt, and water. The simplicity of the components belied the skill required to transform them into the perfect bagel. He asked thoughtful questions about the business challenges facing small independent bakeries in an era of supermarket chains and changing consumer habits. The couple learned that the neighborhood itself had evolved dramatically over the years, with new residents arriving from all corners of the world, each bringing their own culinary traditions while embracing established local businesses like this one. The bakery had become a meeting point where different communities intersected, united by their appreciation for quality baked goods made with care and tradition. Ray Rinkoff led William and Kate toward the back of the shop where the real magic happened. Behind a glass partition, they could see the bakery's production area, a compact but efficient space where skilled bakers had been working since before dawn to prepare the day's offerings. The warm, yeasty aroma grew stronger as they entered the working kitchen, and both royals paused to take in the bustling activity around them. 3 bakers were already at work, their movements efficient and practiced after years of following the same routines. Mountains of dough sat ready to be shaped, while others were already formed into perfect rings and arranged on wooden boards, waiting their turn in the large commercial ovens. The rhythmic sounds of kneading and shaping created a soothing backdrop to the morning's work. Kate immediately gravitated towards Sarah, a master baker who had been working at Rinkoff for 15 years. Sarah's hands moved with incredible speed and precision as she demonstrated the proper technique for rolling bagel dough. She explained that each bagel required exactly the right amount of pressure and timing. Too little, and the dough wouldn't hold its shape during boiling; too much, and the finished product would be dense and heavy. William found himself paired with Marcus, a younger baker who had recently completed his apprenticeship under Ray's careful guidance. Marcus had grown up in a neighborhood and remembered visiting the bakery as a child with his grandmother, never imagining he would one day work there himself, let alone teach a future king how to make bagels. The lesson began with the basics. Ray explained that bagel making was fundamentally different from bread baking because of one crucial step that most people didn't know about: the boiling process. Before bagels could be baked, they had to be briefly immersed in boiling water, which created their distinctive chewy texture and glossy exterior. This technique had been developed centuries ago in Eastern European communities and remained virtually unchanged. Kate rolled up her sleeves and approached her portion of dough with characteristic determination. The mixture felt different from anything she had worked with before, denser and more elastic than regular bread dough. Sarah guided her hands, showing her how to form the initial ball and then create the characteristic hole in the center. The first attempt resulted in an uneven shape that caused everyone to laugh, including Kate herself. Meanwhile, William was struggling with his own piece of dough. Despite his best efforts to follow Marcus's instructions, his bagel looked more like an abstract sculpture than a breakfast item. The hole was off-center, and one side was noticeably thicker than the other. Marcus good-naturedly offered encouragement while gently correcting his technique. As they worked, Ray shared stories about the famous customers who had visited the bakery over the years. Politicians, actors, and local celebrities had all stopped by, but none had ever actually participated in the baking process. He described how the neighborhood had changed around them, with new restaurants and cafes opening regularly, yet somehow the traditional bakery had maintained its loyal customer base. The learning process was more challenging than either royal had anticipated. The dough required a specific touch, firm enough to maintain the bagel shape, but gentle enough not to overwork the gluten. Kate's second attempt showed marked improvement, producing a reasonably round bagel with a properly centered hole. Her competitive nature began to show as she asked for tips on achieving the perfect symmetry. William's technique was developing more slowly, but his natural curiosity led him to ask detailed questions about every aspect of the process. He wanted to understand the science behind the boiling step, the optimal oven temperature, and how weather conditions could affect the dough's behavior. His genuine interest clearly pleased the bakers, who found themselves explaining techniques they normally took for granted. Sarah demonstrated the traditional hand-rolling method that had been used by bagel makers for generations. Rather than using a rolling pin, she showed Kate how to roll the dough between her palms and the work surface, applying pressure gradually to create an even rope of dough. The rope was then formed into a circle, and the ends were carefully sealed together to prevent separation during boiling and baking. The physical demands of the work became apparent as they continued. Professional bakers developed specific muscle memory and hand strength from years of practice. Kate found her forearms beginning to ache after just 20 minutes of kneading and shaping, giving her new appreciation for the skill and stamina required for this traditional craft. A steady stream of regular customers continued to enter the front of the shop, many hoping to catch a glimpse of the royal visitors. Ray's wife managed the retail area, serving familiar faces while occasionally updating the bakers on the growing crowd outside. The normal rhythm of business continued despite the unusual circumstances, testament to the bakery's commitment to serving their community regardless of special events. As their technique improved, William and Kate began to develop a comfortable working rhythm. They chatted with the professional bakers about their training, their daily routines, and the satisfaction they found in creating something that brought people together. The conversation revealed the deep pride these craftspeople took in their work and their role in maintaining cultural traditions that connected the neighborhood to its immigrant roots. The moment of truth arrived as Ray announced it was time to move their handmade bagels to the next crucial stage, the boiling process. A large pot of water bubbled vigorously on the industrial stove with what appeared to be a simple setup, but required precise timing and technique. William and Kate watched intently as Sarah demonstrated the proper method, using a large slotted spoon to gently lower a perfectly formed bagel into the rolling water. The transformation was immediate and fascinating. As soon as the dough hit the hot water, it began to puff slightly and develop a subtle sheen on its surface. Sarah explained that this brief boiling period, lasting only about 60 seconds per side, was what gave bagels their distinctive chewy texture and prevented them from becoming just another type of bread roll. The process also helped set the shape permanently, ensuring the hole wouldn't close up during the final baking stage. Kate volunteered to go first with her latest creation, a reasonably well-shaped sesame bagel that had earned approving nods from the professional bakers. Her hands trembled slightly with nervous excitement as she gripped the slotted spoon. The bagel slipped into the water with a satisfying plop, immediately beginning its transformation from pale, dense dough into something that actually resembled a proper bagel. William stood beside her, watching his own poppy seed bagel awaiting its turn. Despite his initial struggles with shaping, his most recent attempt had shown significant improvement. Marcus had helped him achieve a more uniform thickness and a properly centered hole, though it still bore the unmistakable marks of amateur craftsmanship. The timing proved more critical than expected. Sarah counted aloud as each bagel spent its allotted time in the boiling water, using her spoon to gently flip them over at precisely the right moment. Too long in the water would make them tough and rubbery, while insufficient boiling time would result in a soft, bread-like texture that traditionalists would never accept as authentic. As Kate's bagel emerged from its hot bath, glistening and noticeably firmer than before, she felt a surge of pride at this small but significant accomplishment. The simple act of creating something with her hands that would soon feed people gave her a deeper understanding of the satisfaction that skilled craftspeople experienced in their daily work. Ray shared stories about his grandfather's early days in London, when the East End was a very different place. Immigrant families had clustered together in tight-knit communities, sharing traditions and supporting each other through difficult times. The bagel had been more than just food. It was a connection to the old country, a taste of home in an unfamiliar place. These recipes have been guarded carefully and passed down through families like precious heirlooms. The neighborhood around them told a similar story of evolution and continuity. Through the large windows facing the street, they could see the diverse mix of businesses that now characterized modern East London. Trendy coffee shops operated alongside traditional curry houses, while boutique clothing stores shared block space with family-run grocery stores that had served the same customers for decades. William's turn at the boiling pot proved more challenging. His bagel was slightly irregular in shape, and getting it positioned properly on the spoon required some maneuvering. When it finally entered the water, it created a bigger splash than intended, sending drops of hot water scattering across the work surface. Everyone laughed good-naturedly, including William himself, who was clearly enjoying this departure from his usual formal duties. During the boiling process, Ray's team prepared the final ingredients that would complete their bagels. Small bowls contained various toppings: sesame seeds, poppy seeds, coarse salt, and everything seasoning, a blend that had become increasingly popular in recent years. Each topping would be applied while the bagels were still damp from boiling, allowing the seeds and salt to adhere properly during baking. Kate expressed fascination with the everything seasoning, a mixture that seemed to represent the multicultural nature of modern London perfectly. Originally an American innovation, it had been enthusiastically adopted by bakeries worldwide and now felt as traditional as any other bagel topping. This adaptation of immigrant traditions to local tastes exemplified how food cultures evolved while maintaining their essential character. The professional bakers worked efficiently around the royal visitors, maintaining their regular production schedule while patiently answering questions and offering gentle corrections. Their skill was evident in every movement. The way they judged the dough's readiness by touch, monitored the water temperature by sight, and timed each step with an internal rhythm developed through years of practice. William found himself particularly interested in the business aspects of maintaining a traditional bakery in an area experiencing rapid gentrification. Ray acknowledged the challenges honestly: rising rents, changing customer expectations, and competition from larger chains that could offer lower prices through mass production. However, he remained optimistic about the future, pointing to a growing appreciation for artisanal foods and authentic cultural experiences. As their bagels completed their time in the boiling water, both William and Kate felt a sense of anticipation about the final baking stage. Their creations looked recognizably like bagels now, though still bearing the charming imperfections that marked them as handmade by beginners. The transformation from simple ingredients to something approaching professional quality had been more remarkable than either had expected. Sarah began preparing the large commercial ovens for the final stage of the process, adjusting temperature controls and checking that the racks were properly positioned. The heat radiating from the open oven doors reminded everyone that professional baking required not only skill, but also physical endurance to work in challenging conditions for long hours each day. The industrial ovens radiated intense heat as Sarah began arranging the freshly boiled bagels on large baking sheets lined with parchment paper. The temperature inside reached nearly 400 degrees Fahrenheit, creating an environment that would transform the pale, damp bagels into golden brown breakfast items within the next 15 to 20 minutes. William and Kate watched as their amateur creations were carefully positioned alongside dozens of professionally made bagels destined for the day's customers. Marcus handed Kate a small brush and a bowl of beaten egg wash, explaining that this final step would give her bagel its characteristic glossy finish. She applied the wash carefully, trying to cover the entire surface evenly while avoiding drips that might burn during baking. Her concentration was complete as she worked, clearly taking pride in perfecting every detail of the process. William chose to top his bagel with everything seasoning, sprinkling a mixture of sesame seeds, poppy seeds, dried onion, and garlic flakes across the egg wash surface. His application was perhaps more generous than strictly necessary, but Marcus assured him that enthusiasm was better than restraint when it came to bagel toppings. The irregular distribution of seeds actually added to the artisanal appearance. While their bagels baked, Ray took the opportunity to explain how the business had adapted to changing times while preserving its essential character. The basic recipes remained unchanged from his grandfather's era, but they had expanded their offerings to include modern favorites like chocolate chip bagels and various cream cheese flavors that appealed to younger customers. This balance between tradition and innovation had been crucial to their survival in an evolving marketplace. The neighborhood outside continued to buzz with activity as word spread about the royal visit. Local news crews had arrived and were setting up equipment on the sidewalk, though they maintained a respectful distance from the bakery entrance. Regular customers who had been shopping elsewhere in the area made detours to walk past the familiar storefront, hoping to catch a glimpse of the unexpected excitement. Inside the bakery's front section, Ray's wife continued serving the steady stream of customers who had come for their regular morning purchases. Many were longtime patrons who remembered when the current building housed a different business entirely, before the Rinkoff family had expanded into their present location. These customers represented multiple generations of families who had made the bakery part of their weekly routines. Kate engaged the bakers in conversation about their training and career paths, learning that several had discovered their passion for baking through community college programs designed to preserve traditional food crafts. The government had recently increased funding for such initiatives, recognizing that artisanal skills were valuable cultural assets that deserve support and protection from market pressures. The aroma emanating from the ovens grew increasingly tantalizing as the bagels approached completion. William commented that he had never fully appreciated the complexity of smells involved in professional baking. The interplay of yeast, browning flour, and toasted seeds created layers of fragrance that seemed to change every few minutes as the heat worked its transformation. Sarah began checking the bagels through the oven's glass door, looking for the telltale signs of proper doneness. The surfaces should develop a rich golden brown color while maintaining their shape and texture. Timing was critical at this stage. A few minutes too long would result in overly hard crusts, while insufficient baking would leave the interiors doughy and unpleasant. Ray shared memories of his own childhood spent in the bakery, helping his father during school holidays and learning the trade through observation and gradually increasing responsibility. He had initially planned to pursue a different career entirely, but the pull of family tradition and his genuine love for the craft had ultimately convinced him to take over the business when his father retired. The conversation revealed the deep community connections that small businesses like this one maintained. Ray knew most of his regular customers by name and often inquired about their families, their jobs, and their personal milestones. The bakery served as an informal community center where neighbors exchanged news and maintained social bonds that extended far beyond simple commercial transactions. William asked about the challenges of competing with large supermarket chains that could offer mass-produced bagels at much lower prices. Ray acknowledged this was an ongoing concern, but pointed out that discerning customers increasingly valued quality, authenticity, and personal service over convenience and cost savings. The trend towards supporting local businesses had actually strengthened during recent years as people sought more meaningful connections to their food sources. A gentle timer chime indicated that the first batch of bagels was ready for inspection. Sarah donned heavy gloves and carefully removed one of the baking sheets from the oven. The bagels had indeed transformed into beautiful golden brown creations that looked remarkably professional despite their humble beginnings as amateur efforts just an hour earlier. Kate's bagel had baked evenly and developed an attractive color that suggested perfect timing and temperature control. The sesame seeds had toasted to a light brown and adhered well to the surface. William's everything seasoned creation looked equally successful, though the generous application of toppings had created some areas of darker browning where the seasonings had concentrated. The professional bakers examined the royal creations with the critical eye of experts, but offered nothing but encouragement and praise for the results. Both bagels had achieved the proper texture and appearance, with only minor irregularities that actually added character rather than detracting from their appeal. The holes had maintained their shape throughout the process, and the crusts appeared properly crispy without being overly hard. As the bagels cooled on wire racks, Ray prepared for the final element of the experience, the tasting. He had arranged a selection of traditional and modern cream cheese spreads, along with smoked salmon, capers, and other classic bagel accompaniments. This would be the ultimate test of their morning's work, determining whether their handmade creations could truly satisfy as authentic bagels worthy of the Rinkoff family name. The moment everyone had been waiting for arrived as Ray carefully sliced the cooled bagels in half, revealing their interior structure. The cross-sections looked exactly as they should, dense but not heavy, with a proper chewy texture and small, even holes throughout the crumb. Both William and Kate leaned forward eagerly to examine their handiwork, clearly pleased with the professional appearance their amateur efforts had achieved. Kate's sesame bagel released a wonderful aroma as it was cut, the toasted seeds adding a nutty fragrance to the basic bread scent. The interior showed the characteristic pale yellow color of properly made bagel dough, with no signs of the dense, gummy texture that often resulted from inexperienced handling. Sarah nodded approvingly as she examined the crumb structure, confirming that the boiling and baking processes had worked their intended magic. William's everything bagel presented an even more complex aromatic profile, with the various seasonings having melded together during baking to create something greater than the sum of their individual parts. The poppy seeds had provided tiny bursts of flavor, while the dried onion and garlic had softened and caramelized slightly, adding savory depth to the overall taste experience. Ray had prepared an impressive array of accompaniments on a large wooden board. Several varieties of cream cheese ranging from plain to scallion to lox spread, thin slices of smoked salmon, capers, red onion rounds, and fresh dill. The presentation looked like something from an upscale restaurant, though every component had been prepared in-house using traditional methods and high-quality ingredients. The tasting began with the most basic preparation, plain cream cheese spread generously on the warm bagel halves. Both royals took their first bites simultaneously, chewing thoughtfully as they evaluated the results of their morning's labor. The texture was perfect. The exterior crust provided satisfying resistance before giving way to the characteristic dense chewiness that distinguished authentic bagels from ordinary bread products. Kate's expression showed genuine surprise and delight at how good her creation tasted. The sesame seeds added subtle flavor and textural interest, while the bagel itself had developed a complex taste through the fermentation and baking processes that was far more sophisticated than its simple ingredient list would suggest. She asked for seconds immediately, clearly proud of what she had accomplished. William's everything bagel proved equally successful, though the bold seasonings created a more intense flavor experience. The combination of seeds and dried vegetables had created layers of taste that revealed themselves gradually with each bite. Marcus watched with obvious satisfaction as the prince consumed his creation enthusiastically, offering comments on the balance of flavors and the proper chewiness of the texture. The professional bakers joined in the tasting, sampling both royal creations alongside their own production bagels. Their verdict was unanimous. While minor imperfections in shaping marked these as amateur work, the fundamental quality was indistinguishable from professionally made bagels. The traditional techniques had triumphed over inexperience, proving that good ingredients and proper methods could overcome limited skill. Ray's wife appeared from the front shop to announce that a small crowd of regular customers had gathered, hoping to meet the royal visitors before they departed. Many were elderly neighborhood residents who had been shopping at the bakery for decades and considered themselves part of an extended Rinkoff family. Their genuine affection for the business and its owners was evident in their patient waiting despite having their own morning schedules to maintain. The royal couple readily agreed to greet their fellow bagel enthusiasts, still carrying their half-eaten creations as they moved toward the front of the shop. The sight of William and Kate actually eating food they had prepared themselves delighted the gathered customers, who peppered them with questions about the baking process and their impressions of the neighborhood. An elderly woman named Mrs. Cohen, who had been buying challah bread from the bakery every Friday for 30 years, presented Kate with a small bouquet of flowers from her garden. She shared stories about how the neighborhood had changed over the decades while the bakery had remained a constant source of comfort and community connection. Her obvious emotional attachment to this place helped the royal visitors understand how small businesses like this one anchored entire communities. A young father with twin toddlers explained how he had discovered the bakery when he moved to the area for work, and how the weekend ritual of bringing his children for fresh bagels had become central to their family routine. The twins, initially shy in the presence of strangers, warmed up when William and Kate bent down to their level and offered them small pieces of bagel to taste. The conversation naturally turned to the challenges facing small businesses in London's rapidly changing economy. Several customers mentioned their concerns about rising commercial rents, forcing long-time establishments to close, and their determination to support local businesses whenever possible. The Rinkoff family's success in maintaining their operation for over a century had made them local heroes in the eyes of many residents. Ray used this opportunity to announce that the bakery would soon be expanding their educational programs, offering weekend classes where community members could learn traditional baking techniques. The idea had been inspired partly by their royal visitors' obvious enthusiasm for hands-on learning, and partly by growing interest from younger residents who wanted to connect with the cultural heritage of their adopted neighborhood. As the visit drew to a close, William and Kate insisted on purchasing additional bagels to take with them, refusing Ray's offers to provide them as gifts. They wanted to support the business as regular customers rather than accept special treatment, a gesture that clearly moved the bakery owner and his staff. Their selections included several different varieties to share with their own family members who hadn't participated in the morning's adventure. The final photographs were taken with the entire bakery staff, including the regular customers who had waited patiently for this moment. Everyone held bagels in various stages of consumption, creating an informal, joyful image that perfectly captured the spirit of the morning's activities. The formal barriers that usually separated royalty from ordinary citizens had dissolved completely in a shared experience of creating something wonderful together. As their car pulled away from the curb, William and Kate waved goodbye to the crowd that had gathered to see them off. Both carried small paper bags containing their handmade bagels, tangible reminders of a morning spent learning about tradition, community, and the satisfaction that comes from honest work. The Rinkoff bakery returned to its normal routine, but with memories of an extraordinary day when a future king and queen had joined their extended family of bakers and bagel lovers.